Cool, let's get started. Before I get started, I want to show you a picture here from about a month ago. This is from the Ryder Cup. We have a picture of Tiger Woods over here. And everybody's taking a selfie of Tiger Woods. But, and this lady's taking a selfie with herself. But what gets interesting, if you get a little bit closer, is this guy right there. He's on fucking Vivino. Fuck this, I'm drinking wine. So that was kind of cool when we spotted that. He was busy scanning wine while Tiger was playing golf. So great to be here. Thank you, PreSeed, for inviting. And fantastic to see the community here thriving in Copenhagen. And we sometimes forget, and Nicolai would know this, that this community here in Copenhagen has been built in the past 15, 20 years. When I sort of started out as an entrepreneur, I sound really old now. There was not a lot here, there was not a lot of funding, and there wasn't a lot of people in this community. So this has really happened in the last 10, 15 years because people have worked hard to build it. So that's pretty amazing. Cool. I'm going to talk about Vivino, myself. I'm going to spend quite a lot of time on the first 1 million users. So that was a bit of a challenge because it's been a while. So what I did preparing for this, I went back into my old disk drives and looked at old PowerPoints and found some things, sort of reminded me of what the heck was going on when I was talking to PreSeed, which was seed capital back then, and so just give you an idea about how I saw the world back then, what we learned, and so I think that's kind of cool. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about data, which relates very much to what Nicolai says about network effects. We see them as the network effects for us is creating data. The reason why we are where we are is not technology, it's the data. We're beating everyone because we have the best data. And that's hard to get. And finally, if there's probably not going to be any time left, finally we're going to talk a little bit about what our bet is. What are we trying to do here? What are we trying to build? So let's get started. My name is Heini Zachariassen. I have 3 kids, only 1 wife, and I'm definitely an entrepreneur. I like to build companies. I like to build stuff that people use. That's really what drives me. It's not about money, all those things. It's more about building something. That's what really drives me. I think that's amazing. This is my family. We moved to San Francisco 5 years ago to build Vivino there. We are split up, so we have a pretty big office here in Copenhagen with 50 people, product engineering, and then we have around 30 people in San Francisco, and the rest is sort of spread out. Silicon Valley and San Francisco is an amazing place to be. It is, for me, who grew up in a place like this, which is beautiful, but the only thing people knew about on the Faroe Islands where I'm from is fish. So I never felt really at home when it comes to that. But coming to San Francisco, coming to the tech hub of the world was amazing for me. No doubt about that. It's an amazing place. So I want to know a little bit about the audience here before I move on. So I assume that a lot of people are entrepreneurs, founders, or related somehow. So I'd love to ask you how far you guys are in this. So I want to start with how many here have not raised any money but are at an idea stage, or maybe built some but have not raised any money? Oh, quite a few. Good, good. It could be they've chosen not to raise money, or maybe it's hard. So the next one, who's not at a seed stage, but like an angel stage, raised some money, maybe friends and family, an angel. Who's at that stage? Okay, here we go. Good. Okay, one more, then 2 more actually. We'll see when it stops. What about seed? Who has raised seed money from someone? Okay. Oh, we're definitely thinning out now, like 3, 4. Okay, last one. Has anyone raised an angel round so far? A round so far? Nicole has us several times. But okay, cool. So that it's good because I think what I'm going to talk about is very relevant to that particular stage, the first stages there, which are hard and where most companies, I'm going to say fail, but just don't move on from there. Cool. First a little bit about Vivino. So when I walked into a supermarket in Copenhagen in whatever, 2008, 2009, I was super frustrated. I saw this wall of wine, just like this lady. I had no idea what to buy. And I was thinking, what is that? Like, if I want to buy a book, I can get a rating. I want to see a movie, I can get a rating. But apparently, if you're buying wine, that's a big secret. So I wanted to change that. We wanted to change, there's got to be a way to map all these things and know all the wines in the world. So we said, we want to change that. And I obviously knew nothing about wine at all. And I talked to people that knew wine and they said, you know what, you should probably focus on Bordeaux and only do Bordeaux because otherwise it's impossible. And that's interesting, right? Because why is it someone from the Faroe Islands, Denmark that does this? Why not someone from France? I remember when we raised our A round, there was a tweet that came out. Some French guy said, why the hell isn't this app French? Why did some guys in Copenhagen build this? But it could be because when you're an outsider, you're naive and you just go for it. And that's basically what we did. The things that we sometimes forget when time passes on is that technology changes, and for us, the big thing was the smartphone. So the iPhone came out in 2007, the App Store launched in 2008. It's not that long ago. And penetration didn't come till 10, 11, 12. And just imagine, plus 10 years from now, the only way you could bring a computer to a supermarket is like bring your laptop and a digital camera. Like, not that realistic. And that's what really changed here. Suddenly, the timing was right. We walked into a supermarket with a computer, with a camera that was online. So one thing to remember here, when people talk about success and failure and luck, one of the most important things in a startup is timing. You gotta hit the timing right. It doesn't mean we were smarter or anything, it just means we did hit the timing right. A little bit earlier, technology wasn't mature. A little bit later, there'd be too much competition. So you gotta hit that spot on. Super important. Something else that happened at the same time was that consumer ratings, community ratings started to grow. So Yelp, TripAdvisor, IMDb, Uber, everything got a rating. So wine was really missing here, and that's where we came in. But the problem in wine was a guy, does anyone know this guy? Someone does, yeah, look at the name to me. So a few people know him, right? I speak a lot at wine conferences, and you're like, are you fucking stupid? Of course we know this guy. So this crowd doesn't, but this is Robert Parker. He's the most important, influential wine critic in the world. He invented the score system for wine, which is a scale from 0 to 100, but really from 50 to 100, and they don't announce anything if it's under 80, so 80 to 100. So like a weird scale. He invented that, probably the best wine taster in the world ever, really, really good at doing that. But he defined this market, but there's a problem, right? Critics can do this many wines a year. So someone like Parker and their entire organization, they do around 20,000 wines a year. We have 10 million wines in our database. So when you go to Biltgar or somewhere else, none of the wines are rated by these people. So compare it again. They do 20,000 ratings a year. We get 100,000 ratings a day. So we have the capacity to actually do this. So the next question that comes from the industry, okay, well, what about it? Are these ratings any good? Do people know wine? And of course, we looked at that just to see, and there was a clear answer. We looked at the correlation between what do the people think and what do the experts think, and the community is just as good as the experts. So that was important because this system is much better because it has so much more capacity. We can rate any wine in the world. You go to Biltgar today, every single wine will be rated. They could never do that. So that's a big deal for us. Actually, correlation was so strong that we looked at correlation between those two. We came in between, had stronger correlation to them individually than they did to each other. So really, really good community ratings. And some of the other problems I want to mention here, which you know from Yelp, is that people rate 5-star and 1-star, and only that. We don't have that problem. We don't know for sure why. Maybe you don't get as mad at a bottle of wine as you do at a waiter. But something like that. So we have a really nice distribution of ratings. When we look at how that comes out in averages, it looks really nice. The bad ones get all the way down here. Should definitely not drink that. And up here, it's the better stuff. So really, really nice distribution. Cool. Yeah, I'm going to jump over that quickly. Where we are now is that we are by far the biggest wine app in the world. We are probably growing 50 times as number 2 right now. When Apptopia looked at the most popular food and drinks app of 2017, we came out as number 2 in the entire food and drink category because we have such global distribution. We're in every single market in the world where they drink wine. So that, I think, was kind of cool. Numbers, real quickly, 33 million users, 700 bottles scanned, and this is key for our success. We just crossed 100 million wine ratings in the system. Very, very important. And our users look up 2 million wines every single day. So that's people making buying decisions every single day, but a massive, massive database. And this is really what matters to us. Cool, good. Now I'm gonna go a little bit back in time because I think that sometimes it feels like when I talk to people that, yeah, but you are where you are, it's all different. But wherever you guys are, I've been. And I have vivid and painful memories of it. So I've definitely been through everything you've been through, and it's been difficult. We made a lot of stupid choices and that kind of stuff, but we've been through it, and it definitely can be done. An important thing is, which Nicolai sort of came into a little bit, is that I hear this a lot. I have an idea for an app, and like I've heard it a lot. And like building an app is a craft like anything else. You need to know how to build an app, understand it, and so on. So somehow the funny thing is that people have ideas for apps, but they don't have ideas for cars. But I think they can build an app, but nobody thinks they can build a car. But building an app is actually quite hard. It requires engineers and smart people. So just generally something I always want to say is that ideas generally don't matter. Ideas don't have any value. If you look at our app, this is not an original idea. Like hundreds and hundreds of people try to build the same thing. It's not about the idea. Actually, people are taking wine labels, steamed them off bottles, and put them into books for hundreds of years. It's not about the idea. It's about execution, doing that in the right order. That's what it's about. So ideas is not something I value too much. Cool. One thing also is, why do we talk about all of this? Because a lot of people come to me and say, hey, I can't raise money, what do I do? You gotta remember the right order here is that raising millions is easy. Building a product used by millions is hard. I guarantee you that if you build a product that people use, you will be able to raise money. So focus your energy the right way. Don't optimize your deck. It's not about the deck. You wanna build a good deck, you wanna cover your bases, all that thing, but it's about building the best product that people wanna use. So people sometimes take this in the wrong order and say, I don't know how to raise money. You're probably doing fine with raising money. You gotta build that product. That's what it's about. I think that's important to have it in the right order. Cool, we're going back in time to 2010. That's almost 8-9 years ago now. So this is me, going back to Atomico. Atomico back then was Janus, Friis, and Nicolai Sennström's company back then. Now it's only Sennström, but this was the first sort of slide of what I was trying to build. Back then I had a website and no app at all. So the big vision, the big idea was me using beautiful stock photos, again, didn't know how to do a pitch, beautiful stock photos with watermarks in and telling about this idea. This is an actual pitch back then, and they definitely politely said, yeah, we're fine, no thank you. No, that's not entirely true because Janus Friis was in the room and he knew us. So like Nicolai said, at that stage when you have nothing, what you have is the team. Back then the team was Thijs, my co-founder, and me. We knew Janus pretty well, and he said, yeah, I know they haven't built anything yet, but I know the guys, I think they can build something. I would love to have this product. And he put up a little bit of money. So Atomico we were way too early on that, another rookie mistake that we did. We shouldn't have gone to a VC, but Janus was an angel, and he was very interested. So again, when you show these pitches early on, it's fine to show the big idea. So we didn't have an app, we had nothing at all. We still said, hey, this is what we want to do. And put that in the head of the investor and say, no, this is what we want to do. And the thing about, we started realizing around this time that doing a website with data wasn't that big. Mobile was probably going to take this. So we should probably have known that by then. Oh, cool. So one of the, oh my God, pretty boy. So one of the things that was a problem for us that we realized pretty quickly is that it is a problem that there are millions of wines out there, and in order to recognize them, you have to have seen them all before. So technology doesn't read the label. Technology looks at the label and does pattern recognition. So we look at it and say, hey, I know this label, it's this wine. So we have to have seen all the wines before, which is a problem when you have 0 pictures of labels, obviously. So we built this thing, which the app itself, pretty as it is, was a competition app. So we did a competition that said, you can win this amazing corkscrew. All you have to do is send us some wine labels. And the only feature was that you sent the label and it says, you're now number 8 or 7. You can keep sending, you get more. Really simple gamification, but it worked pretty well. I think we got like 20,000 labels. It was really good. And when we sent it to Apple the first time, because it's a hybrid, right? So it's just a frame with HTML. And they said, yeah, this app is not gonna get approved. There's nothing in it. We said, no, it's a big competition. And they approved it in the end, but they didn't like it much in the beginning. And here's another thing that relates to that. It's this beautiful, not so beautiful at this time, young man, is an example of how you have to think in the early stages. Is don't try and build beautiful things in the early days. You gotta focus on what's important. For us, the important thing was building data, getting ratings. That's what people wanted. They could live with the design. He turned out really well. And our app looked like this. Not that pretty. But that's the kind of choices you have to make at this stage. Don't try and optimize it. And we had plenty of competition from apps that were amazing, beautiful, and Apple fucking hated us. We weren't featured once, never ever. All the other guys, which horrible wine apps that looked amazing, they were featured all the time. We got nothing from Apple. So focus on what's important for the user. Find out what the user really wants and aggressively ignore everything else. Design can't be in the way, but you don't have to. Doing great design takes up a lot of resources. Don't spend time on it. We also had a philosophy of not building a long roadmap. This was a hybrid, so we could change it really quickly. So it was all built on web, and we did a new release every single week. And our philosophy, which I've sometimes explained, was like an onion, because when we looked at the product and talked to our users, they said, obviously, hey, this is what we need now. This is what's missing. Then you peeled it like an onion, and you never knew what was behind there. But when you peeled the onion, you knew exactly what was missing. And that's important. It's hard to see through all the layers, but when you build the app, you'll see it clearly. So don't try and plan too far. Just sort of peel it like an onion, and early stages, just go. I'm trying to keep an eye on my time here.
You're fine.
We're good.
10 to 6.
Cool. The last thing on these this is a very important time for us. We don't have any product market fit. We're just iterating really quickly to build the product. And one thing that's important here is getting some organic users in the door. And you don't have to get thousands of users, but getting like 50, 100, maybe even 20 users in the door every day is important, because then you can see if you improve the product. So I don't recommend people to do a lot of PR and awareness here, because also takes up a lot of time. Do a minimum to make sure you get some organic traffic in so you can build the product. What I did back then was send a few emails to some sort of niche things, like small blogs. So I didn't go big. I always recommend to go big, so I say go small. That's not very often. But don't send an email to Wired and TechCrunch. Fuck that. Go and find someone in your niche that does a blog or something like that, and start to get a little bit of traction. For me, that worked a lot better. I sent out, when we released Android, it was the first sort of wine app with image recognition for Android. So I sent to 10 Android blogs, like niche, and some of them picked it up, and we got a little bit of attention. And then we got a little bit lucky, because Lifehacker looked at that blog and took the story too. So you can get lucky too, but I don't recommend like trying to get the big story at the early stage. Instead, sort of be humble and say, hey, we're two guys or girls in a basement trying to build this stuff. We'd love to show it to you. Can we do something? That worked really well for us, at least. So don't spend a lot of time on PR awareness at the early stage, but do a little bit so you can get some organic traffic. So here's some of these numbers you should be able to recognize. It's hard to see, but now we're in July, so we've been half a year since we released. We're getting 150 downloads a day. We had 50,000. Most of that was like one story in Lifehacker, which gave us a lot of downloads. And then you see, we focused on what was very, very important for us. This is the graph of our match rate. So of the wines that come in, how many are matched? Because that's what people wanted. Focus all your energy on what the users want. In our case, it was about how many were matched, and this is the actual rate. Around 50% of the wines were matched, and this here is the ones that we matched relatively quickly, but manually. So around 50%. So we focus everything on the one feature that people want. That's very, very important. And then the numbers started to sort of come. This was before, this is when we did the competition, and it was slowly growing with our actual app, how many labels. But again, it's like 17,000 total a month, so really, really small numbers. We also did another thing. We were on multiple platforms. Again, the world was a little bit different then, but we thought we could sort of grow the company by adding Windows Phone and that. And honestly, if you build a product market fit, if you can stay on one platform, I do that any day. If it's a social product, then you might have to be on Android and iOS. But if whatever you find easier to build on one platform. Don't try and do both unless you have to. It's just, I know they're hybrid, but any complexity you want to get out to be able to build faster because you don't have product market fit. That's very, very important. Cool. A couple slides which I kind of like was that we early on saw that we thought that whatever we did on the PC was going to move to the smartphone. And I don't think mobile commerce had a word back then, but we said, hey, anything you do on the computer is going to go to smartphone. So we really believed in that. Anyway, August, we keep on going. So one of the things that I found really important here is that we understood our target audience. Let me get back to that, sorry. I want to show you our value prop back then, because that's interesting. We said, never forget another wine. We knew that our database was not very good, so we pitched that, hey, no, you scan your wines and we'll remember all the wines you had. That doesn't require a lot of data. So we used that as a pitch, say, hey, never forget another wine. We used that for quite a long time while we're growing our match rate. I think that's kind of important. And then I'm going to jump a little bit here because later on we had another slogan called never drink another bad wine. Pretty good. We've changed a little bit since. But we used this for some time. And then in the UK, we used it and we got our own boxes when we shipped. Amazing, like own boxes, Vivino, everything on there. So one of the users sent us this one and it was like, oh, fuck. So you don't think about these things, right? But when you actually release the product, you realize that might not be the best slogan. I might have to change things around a little bit. So another bad wine, Vivino.com. Another thing which I think is so incredibly important in the early stages is understanding your audience. Do you know who your audience is? In our space, it was very, very important because there was a lot of wine apps out there already. So when we started, around 600 different wine apps out there. A lot of them were made by people that really knew wine and wanted to serve that audience. That's not what we wanted to do. So very early on, we had this target profile of our users. That's really something I encourage because this determines what products you want to release, what features you want to release. That's very important. And some of these things are contradicting. They're not like, or they're not sort of, hey, obvious choices. But when you make choices here, you say, love wine, but don't know much about it. Don't have a wine cellar, just a row of bottles in the kitchen. That's a specific audience. So we shouldn't be making decisions now that help you build a wine cellar. That's not who our audience is. So this, again, is something that I find very, very important in the early stages. We still tested monetization, and honestly, you should not do that unless you're a SaaS company or something like that. As a consumer product, we shouldn't waste time on that back then. Another thing, and now we're getting late here. Now it's November. We had the app out for almost a year now. And I started raising seed money. I've had a bit of angel. I had Janus Friis fund us for some time. And I actually traveled the world to find investors, which was great as such. But when you're raising seed and pre investors are local. Okay, our angel was in London because we had a special relation with him, but usually you should look for that capital locally. In our case, it was what's now PreSeed that funded, and Nils, who's over there at the bar, made the deal, big mistake. But really, you should go local when you do these, and now there are a lot of different options, so that's good. So we're getting closer now. So now we're in January 2012, and our numbers are actually picking up. We're really happy here, because this is our first round, and we haven't really heard about seasonality yet. So we think this is amazing, but actually, this is just seasonality. There's not that much in it. Again, we keep focusing, but what we realized at this point is that this hybrid app that we have, again, it's all about the product, just wasn't good enough. Like, the next we had to do was build a native app, build a proper app to sort of take us. We're building data all the time. Now we have to build something better. I think that was very, very important for us. So now things are happening because we released our native app in April of 2012. And this is December I talked about earlier. Oh, amazing, boom, down again. So that's seasonality for you. But something definitely happened in April of 2012. We could really see that this was looking pretty damn good. And we just improved the product and kept improving the product. And it actually went better and better from there. Another thing that was really important back in the day, I think Instagram had just started or was starting to go crazy. So we said to ourselves, we want to have social features in the app. And that, interestingly enough, it was not that important for us. So we rely heavily on the social part, but it's not a feature that most people will use. Most people use it as a tool, and they have all their wines in there. The social part is a small group. They use it very actively, but it's not a core feature for us. Another thing we did around that time, which I think everybody should do, is look at cohorts very early on. So cohorts means you take a group of people and see how they behave. So the users that came in very early on, only 60% were active the first month, actually managed to do a scan, and went down to under 10%. That's not great. What you want to be in the app space generally, we're now at around 20%. 20% is really, really good. If you're gaming, everything's different, but usually around 20% is good. But when you start analyzing these things, you can really see quickly that this app is performing a lot better. Like, you see those points, you're higher level, because this is the April release. It changed everything for us, that the product just became so much better that the entire cohorts were lifted. So this is a really, really important tool. This is part of Creandom's pitch in October of 2012, which Seed Capital invited to actually to meet. That was a funny one, though, I'll tell you that. So I was pitching. Martin Hauge is not a partner there anymore. But I could tell 10 minutes into the pitch that, holy shit, the energy. Oh yeah, that's drama for you. That was nothing. I could tell 10 minutes into the pitch that the energy just changed. Like, he started fucking pitching me. And that's where you can see, like, oh my God, this guy loves what we're doing. And from there it was pretty easy. But really, you know, getting that energy is amazing because you're always fighting for everything. So it's fun to see that. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what a product market fit looks like. This is all. There's some seasonality, but we never went down from there again. But this is really what it looks like when you get a proper product market fit. It just goes crazy. So that's good. The thing about Creandom, which is also important, this is a long time ago. I can tell you numbers. It's fine. So we raised $1 million in early December of 2012, and they wanted to put more money in. I said, no, I don't want more money. They pushed. I said, no. Because I had seen this was looking pretty damn good. So I said, no more. Is that still me? That's weird. Okay. So I said, no. The thing about it is that we raised in December, we raised $1 million at a $10 million valuation. That's December. May, 6 months later, we raised 10 million at 30. So these valuations, when you hit it, change completely. So that's very, very important. But this is what it looks like. So I took this and, how much time I got left?
So maybe we take 10, 15 minutes more and then the Q&A after that?
Cool, yeah, good. So when I looked at all this, I sort of said, okay, build this down to like 5 important things. on finding a product market fit. So know your target audience. You gotta know who it is because you'll make decisions based on that. So be very clear. Don't try and serve everybody. You're gonna find an audience and go for that. And again, find out what the user really wants. Don't try and do the things around. You don't have the resources for it. You gotta move fast. So cut everything away. It's ugly, it's fine. You can make it pretty later. Clooney, again, he turned out fine. So we didn't like to have a product roadmap. You can have some ideas and stuff, but build quickly. You'll see when you get there what you need to build next. It's a really, really good way of doing it. And again, one platform. Finally, when it comes to product market fit, people say, oh, I don't know if I have it or not. I tell you, when you have it, you know it. I remember when my wife was pregnant with our first child, we kept asking, how do we know when the birth is supposed to start? When it starts, you'll know it. And it's the same thing with this. That's how it works. Cool. I'm going to talk a little bit about big data here, just to show you a little. This is going to be pretty quickly. To give you an idea about the data we'd have, which is really our core asset. This is really what creates Vivino. It's not the technology, it's this data here. So here's an example of a Brunello. These are the words that people use to describe a Brunello. We have some machine learning to take these things out. The cool thing about it is we can dig into that and look at what people like about a Brunello. So if people say it's silk, velvet, supple, and so on, then they like it because that correlates with the higher rating. So we can tell you exactly what people like in a Brunello. And the other way around, we can say, oh, by the way, if they say simple or astringent or sour, then they really, really don't like it. Maybe it's not here. Okay. So you can hear me, right? Is this thing or what? Hello. You still hear me? Okay, cool. Maybe it's this. Yeah, I got a big beard. Yeah. So, and the other way around, if they say simple about it, they definitely don't like it, right? So what you can do here is make sure you design wines that match this. But not only that, when you describe a wine, use the right words. The producers, they love this. They think this is very, very interesting. Another thing we have on the taste, which is new, is that we ask our users, what do you want to know about a wine? And they said, number 1, rating. Number 2, price. Number 3, what does it taste like? So the only way to do that with Vivino originally is to read these reviews. And they are of very varying quality, different quality, let's put it that way. So what we did, we wanted to structure this. So we've now put together some machine learning that reads all these reviews and makes a structured graph of what it actually looks like. So now when you scan a wine on Vivino, you'll see these graphs. It'll tell you exactly what the tastes are and where it's soft, acidic, smooth, tannic, and so on. And nobody's ever done this in the wine industry. Because we have this insane amount of data, we can do this. Obviously, the point here is that we want to know exactly what every wine tastes like, and then we want to know exactly what you like, and then we'll put those together. We'll have the best recommendation ever built. That's hard to do in wine, so we're really hopeful this is going to work really, really well. Cool, finally. So what the hell are we doing? How do we raise 57 million for a free wine app? So that's some decent pitching right there. So this is a bookstore. 15, 20 years ago, we bought all our books in the bookstore. We went into the bookstore, we took out the book, we could smell it, we could feel it, we could look behind and see if there's anything there. But at some point, we stopped doing that. We buy most of our books online or even digital these days. So some people sometimes make the mistake of thinking that everything just goes online. That's not true. Things go online when they're better online. Supermarkets are not online yet. It's growing, and for some people it is better, but things go online when they're better online. And that's what we want to change. So what happened here was that Amazon came along, and now suddenly they have ratings, reviews, recommendations, better prices, and infinite selection. It became better to buy a book on Amazon than go into the bookstore. That's the big change. That's what they did. That's why people went to the bookstore. What we want to do with wine is exactly that. It's super difficult to buy a wine online. You have the name and the label, like what's that going to do for me? We're adding reviews, rating, very, very personalized recommendations. We'll have the best selection and better prices. That's why wine is going to go online. Wine is very, very small online still, but that's what's going to change the game.
So I actually have the questions here because I also have the login. So one question is, so are you actually working on your, you say idea number A, or have you changed over? So when you started this journey, was it sort of this vision or was it completely else?
Oh yeah, great question. Well actually, the funny thing is, and I think Niels can probably vouch to that, the idea of being able to get a lot of free users, have them scan the wine, and then this picture of, I think I had a picture in there of like a restaurant. So you're sitting at a restaurant, you scan the wine, and then you buy it. That idea was there from day one. So even that monetization has always been the same. But what we really found out is that the scanning scenario is not where we sell the most wine now. So people do that, they scan and they buy, but we're building different products now where people can browse and explore, and they perform much better than the scanning. So the scanning and rating is about learning about the users, keeping them engaged. We build different tools for buying. And that was a surprise to us.
Yeah. So there's also one question regarding KPIs, because you mentioned one KPI again and again, was the space of this matching, how many uploads was matched.
Yeah.
Was that your main KPI, or what else did you use, especially during the early years?
Sure, yeah. So in that, back then, obviously we looked at active users, how many people used the app and so on. But all those were consequences of what really mattered. Did people get what they wanted? And what I said earlier about find out what the users want and ignore everything else, that KPI was based on that. We found out that people wanted this app to work. They scanned a bottle and got a result. So that was a core KPI in the beginning, and the scans and MAU follow that.
I guess also one of the things that you've been through is basically regarding how should we monetize this?
Yeah.
Should we go for the big, the American VC version of it's for free, we'll make money later, or should you start selling? Could you go a little bit into these discussions you had in your team, I guess also with your board on how you should go?
Yeah, I think, this is interesting also because the stages and so on, but we actually tested out monetization. We also did a pro version, a premium version. So we had a little bit of revenue. So we tested all kinds of things just to see if it worked or not. But what really, back then, there was a lot of focus on monetization too. So some of our early stage investors said, you should try and see it. But honestly, that was a mistake. What we should have done all along was just to build it. This is a land grab. You're going to figure out how to make money on this for sure. I mean, if you think about Snapchat or some of these apps, they're great. They are not profitable, but they are definitely making revenue. But for us, it was always pretty obvious. We're very close to a buying decision of a wine. We can monetize this. So what we should have done back then was ignore all that. And as we got more and more investors on board that were really thinking big, they said, fuck all that. Just win it and we'll take it from there. So, I mean, if you're building a consumer app, you should really, if you want to win something, if it's a land grab, you should not monetize early on at all. And of course, you'll need the money. So you need to have investors that believe in that too.
There's also a question about critical mass. I don't know if it's for me, but now I'll shoot it to you. So when would you say that you or Vivino reached critical mass? When was that? Was it when the number of matches went up, so people actually got that value out of it, or was it when you hit specific milestones?
So I think one answer I usually do for that is, I don't know if it's critical mass or not, but the product, how it evolved, was that when it worked more than it didn't work. So when you hit like a 60-70% hit ratio on that it worked, there was some magic happened there, and we just got a lot better. That's not really critical mass, but there was definitely a turning point for the product.
So what would you say has been maybe the biggest mistake in hindsight? You mentioned monetization. A lot of things, or large things, you say, oh my God, we should have turned left instead of right.
I think, I definitely want to mention monetization again, because that is a common mistake when you're sitting in the middle of everything, have a hard time raising money. you really need someone to come to you with confidence, say, hey, we'll get you money, we can make this happen. That was definitely a big thing. And another thing which was interesting, I don't know if it was a mistake or not, but was this surprise that the scan scenario is not when people want to buy. So we should have, when we started monetization, we should have started building those features right away, which we've done now, and they work really well.
One of the things I also remember from your presentation was this about start small, and you should really go into these 15, 20 organic, you could say, leads a day. What did you do? Because it's so easy to say,
Yeah, exactly.
What did you do to, was it?
Yeah, I was definitely fighting for it. And the world again is a little bit different. So we try and get a little bit of press to get awareness. That was one thing. We also got a little bit of organic from the app stores. I don't think that happens as much anymore. But if you do an app, you get some organic traffic. If you do something very niche, I'm sure you still do it. But back then, that generated. But also these small press articles on blogs and stuff, that's how we got to something. And then really the faith that if you build it, they will come, which is not always true. But if you build something that hasn't been built before and you get a real product market fit, they will come.
Well, I have a question that is not here on the app, but it's more a person with how you use market research. So in the early days, of course, you launched and saw these organic leads, how they behave. But what else did you do? Did you take 20 of your friends into the room and testing the app? Or did you just wait until it was actually out there and let real users test it?
Yeah. We fuck no, we didn't do anything like that. We followed our intuition and listened to our users. I think I remember one of our board meetings, one of our colorful Italian friends from Bolton, Roberto Bonanzinga, and he said, hey, I need a number on this thing, whatever it was. And I said, I can't just give you a number of that because we just don't know. I'd have to pull it out of my ass, I said to him. Well, it's better your ass than my ass. And he was making a point, and the point was that you're going to have to guess this number, but I was better qualified to actually guess that number.
Yeah. So you also mentioned in your presentation that you get a lot of these, hey, I have an idea for an app. Let's assume it's people that actually been past that, so actually have built the app or have this cool thing. But what are the main mistake you see, or the main mistakes you see them doing in reaching the first 10 or 20,000 users?
I think one of the big mistakes is that people think they build an app and then they're done. We're still building. And people say, no, I built this, I hired some people to do it, and whatever, and then they stop building. That's not how software works. Look at Facebook 2013, 2018, it's very different. Look at Vivino back then and now. You got to keep building. And so our philosophy is, I'm sure you heard this 1,000 times, is very much an MVP philosophy. We really believe in building the smallest possible thing and releasing it. So I think that's very important. Not everybody does that. So yeah, that's something we believe in.
So there was even a more important question here. When is the beer version coming out? Which actually more seriously also about how you should, are you the wine thing or are you?
Exactly. I think it's a good question. I think we're definitely talking about it quite a bit, but honestly, we're talking more about spirits and liquor than beer. We think it's a more interesting space than beer for commercial reasons and so on. So whiskey, gin, maybe is more interesting. It's not going to be right now, that's for sure.
Yeah. So there's also a question here. Oh my God, this is splitting. What tips and tricks did Vivino do to keep up engagement in the early stages? So now we got all these users coming in.
Yeah. We actually, so one of the things we did was we tried to do a little bit of gamification. We think it worked somewhat. As the product got better, it didn't make a difference anymore, so we actually removed it again. But gamification can work. And also, when you look at the competition thing there, a really simple gamification. Add one more label, you'll be number 3 instead of number 4. But we also built some of those things into the app in the early days to try and get the ball rolling.
You also mentioned that you both have an office in Copenhagen and San Francisco. Could you tell a little bit about the pros and cons of having this such a dual strategy and how it's impacted?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's a pain in the ass. It's really difficult to have 2 teams 9 hours from each other. It's just, if you can avoid that, you should avoid it, especially in the early stages. The thing is, when I went to the US, we were not a clear leader in this space. And our philosophy was, we want to win the US market. If we win the US market, we're going to win the world. So we went over there to talk to the Americans and make sure we won the US market and therefore could win the world. So that has been a pain generally. Yeah. But what we did was we kept product engineering here. So we don't have an engineer in Silicon Valley. We don't have any product people in Silicon Valley. It's all here, which is great. They're just as good. They are much more loyal. They're considerably cheaper. So our outsourcing destination is Copenhagen. Whereas in the US, we have marketing, business development, all our financial and so on, which works really well.
So, now fast forward a few years, right? And now you raise these big rounds. What is the main user channel for you? How are you getting new users? Is it paid advertising? Is it PR? Is it, what is the main user generator for you?
We're so spoiled, it's insane. So we get all our users from organic growth. So we get 20,000 new users every single day. And they come 70-80% through word of mouth. We have PR, we have SEO, really, really good SEO. We get 100,000 visits from Google every day. So all those things drive, but most of it is the heart of the product. I'm drinking wine with my friends, I want to show others. So people drink wine with others, and if they don't, they should talk to somebody about that.
There's also a question regarding your comments about, the quickness of the app, saying, hey, you should actually just, get it out there. But this concern from these users about what if users don't like it and then delete it and bad ratings?
That's the thing, people have this illusion. What about all the users we're going to lose? Well, fuck them, it's 17 users. Like, who cares? It doesn't matter. You're not on the front page of Wired yet. You're not going to get a lot of downloads. It doesn't matter. Let them go. And if they might come back, but it doesn't matter. Piss them off, it's fine.
And on these, what are the 3 most important pieces of advice you can give to these young founders? 3 quick ones?
Yeah. The first one would definitely be focus on the product. Focus on that is just the most important thing. And startups fail from 0 to product market fit. I think that's the only advice I'm going to give, because that's where things fuck up.
Yeah. Okay. So, what, if you then meet this founder who says, hey, I want to do this app or this platform, whatever, any advice you would give them? Anyone else saying?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time with people that come to me and want a little bit of help and so on. I try and help as much as I can. I really want to go back to the community as much as I can. So it varies a lot on where they're at. But there are a few things. What you talked about earlier is the network effects is very, very important. I think one thing you have to remember, if you want to build something that's going to be funded and so on, just building a piece of software is not enough, because I can take those specs, copy them, and have somebody else build it. It's not enough. You have to build something that's defensible. For us, that's a lot of data. It could be network effects, all those. You have to have something else that they can't copy in India. You always think about that. If it's not defensible some way, it's not really investable.
And you are then also based upon all these reviews. And here's a question around what you do to ensure that these reviews are actually real and not fake. Is it a major concern you're facing, or how do you?
Yeah, we've been very fortunate that it's not. It does happen, and we do see it more and more, but at a moderate level. So we have certain things we go through annually, and then we have specific algorithms that try and find it. It's really, a lot of our reviews are based on pictures. So you got to do a lot of work if you want to do fake this. You install a lot of apps and take a lot of pictures of a lot of wines. It's quite tricky to do. So we have seen it, but not a lot. But we have these tricks so we can spot them usually. And obviously the other competitors are going to say, hey, something's wrong here. But I think it's going to grow as we get more influential.
Cool. So I think we'll leave by that. Any final comments?
No, thank you very much for inviting me. It's great to be here.
So.